Hello, good morning. Welcome back to another math session. Today we're going to continue working on our Unit 6 fraction concepts and operations. Our teaching point for today is I can convert between mixed numbers and fractions greater than 1. So far we have been practicing with fractions, actually unit fractions, that represent values that are less than 1. But today we're going to be taking a look at mixed number and also fractions that are greater than 1. So let's take a look. Today is Wednesday, May 13, 2020. And our lesson for today is titled Mixed Numbers and Fractions Greater Than 1. I recommend that you pause the video now and get to copy the date, lesson name, and teaching point before we get to work on our quick practice. Alright? So our quick practice for today is an anytime problem. It is to say that is not necessarily related to our topic for today. So this is the situation. Felix is drawing an animal. Its head is as long as its body, and its tail is as long as its head and body together. The total length of the animal is 40 centimeters. How long is each part of the animal? The head, the body, and the tail. So right here I share the answer with you. So what I recommend is that you get to state sentence by sentence. For example, in the first one, actually the second sentence says, its head is as long as its body. So I would say, or I would use letter H to represent head and B to represent body. So if you translate that into mathematical thinking, actually expression, let's say, we will have H equal to body. In the same way, you are going to represent the remaining ones. All right, since we're going to be working with mixed number, it is important that we take a look at what the mixed number is. So mixed number is basically a whole number and a fraction combined into a mixed number. You can see right here, this big 2. This number right here at front will represent the whole number. And the one right here will represent the fraction part that is attached to that whole number. So mixed numbers are used every day in our everyday life. Probably we don't actually notice it, but as long as we don't have a let's say exact, accurate, measured number, then we're having fraction at everything we do. For example, when children are asked how old they are, they often respond with a mixed number. For example, a child may say he's 6.5 years old. The only way that you can actually have a complete, let's say, a whole number without a fraction in terms of years is when is the precise time that you were born. Otherwise, only even a second pass, then you are adding a fraction to the years that you already have. Another example could be when people measure items, they often use mixed number measurements. For example, a room may be 12.5 feet wide, or a side may call for 3 2/3 cups of sugar, right? Or people report elapsed times using mixed number. For example, a flight may take 3 3/4 hours. Probably we might usually use this as decimal or percentages, but they still represent mixed numbers. All right, we have seen different ways to represent values that are equal to 1 as fractions. This one here, 5/5 or 5/5, it can be expressed as an addition of unit fractions. We already saw that when we add fractions with like denominator, the denominator stays the same. And the only thing that we're going to add are denominators. Another way to represent this fraction, 5/5, is actually by using multiplication. If we take a look, we have 5 times the same addend. So that means that I can multiply 5 times 1/5. And right there I will have the same result. And as I said before, if we divide 5/5, then I will have a value equal to 1. And that actually happens to every value in math. If we divide, for example, 10 over 10 or 525 over 525, and also applies to decimals, we will have a value of 1. It is to say that if we divide a quantity by itself, then we're getting as a result number 1. Learning this rule will allow us to move faster when we get to work with addition subtraction of mixed numbers. Mixed number, right? So right here we have a few examples. If you take a look, we're going to practice with the first one so you can see how can we take a mixed number, make it to a fraction form. So let's see. As we can see right here, we have 4 as a whole number. What we do is that we first break apart this whole number into 1, right? Different ones. How is that? Since I have 4, I will have 1, 2, 3, and 4 ones. And don't forget to add the same fraction, 2/5 in this case. That is going to be equal. Pay attention to this one because right here it gets tricky. We already saw that we can represent number 1 as a fraction, and that's what we actually need so we can add these 2/5 that we have over here. But we need to keep in mind that we need a denominator equal to 5 because the only way that I can add or subtract fraction is when they have the same denominator, a like denominator. All right, so keeping that in mind, what we're going to do is that unit that we're going to convert to 1, then what we're going to do is that we're going to take that 5 over here, and then we're going to have it as denominator. But since we need a 1, the only way that we can get a 1 with the denominator of 5 this time is by also having a 5 in the denominator's place. That way, we can meet the two conditions. First, if we divide 5 over 5, we are still getting 1. So the value stays the same. Even though they look different, they still have the same value. And also, the second condition is that we have the same denominator in every fraction, so we're able to add them. So if we take a look and add these 4 fractions first, the 4 ones that add up to 4, we will see that we get 20 divided by 5, or 25. If we divide 20 by 5, you will see that that is equal to 4, and that is actually the value of our whole number. So that means that the value of our expression, our mixed number, still is the same, even though we have changed a different sign so far. Don't forget about this fraction. Now, what we're going to do is that we're going to add all the denominators. So we have 5 times plus 5, that is 10, plus 5, 15, plus 5, 20, plus 2, 22. And then the denominator stays the same because we have a like denominator situation right here. So converting this mixed number into a fraction right here should go through all these steps, basically 3 steps. So let's try another example. In this case, we have 3 and 4/5. All right. So the first thing that I will do is break apart my whole number into ones, only ones, right? Not 2s or 3s, ones. So since I have a 3 as the whole number, I will have 3 ones. And I won't forget about my 4/5, which is my fractions. Second step, I will take a look at this denominator because I need to make sure that I have the same denominator in every fraction so I can add them together. Then, since I already have my denominators, I need to look for that number on top, nominator, that when I divide it by 5, that is my denominator, I get the value of 1. So my values stay the same. Right here, that would be 5 over 5. Basically, an observation that I make here is that the number right here on these fractions will tell you what numbers you are going to have in the coming fractions, let's say 5 over 5 in this case. If the denominator was something different right here, then something different will come here and something different will come here. But it will basically the same numbers at the top and bottom that we have in the fractions that we're given at first. Don't forget about our fraction over here, you see? Then at last, what we're going to do is to add a like denominator addition right here. So we have the same denominator across, so it stays the same. And the only thing that we're going to do is to add all denominators together. That is 5 plus 5, 10, plus 5, 15, plus 4, 19. And that way, we convert our mixed number into a fraction. But what happens if we need to try the other way around? Let's see. We learned in our first lesson that we could actually ungroup different fractions. Let's say that we could find different combination to come up with a fraction. In this case, we're going to put that into practice and play a little bit with those concepts. So we have 19 fifths in this case. Now, we need to keep in mind that this is actually the reverse process. In our previous example, we were supposed to ungroup our whole first into ones, right? This time, we're coming first with the fractions because we're coming from the fraction all the way to the mixed number. But keep in mind that those fractions that you ungroup right here should be equal to 1. 5 over 5 is equal to 1, 5 fifths as well, 5 fifths as well, and then 4 fifths, which is the fractions that you can actually make equal to 1. And yet again, in this step, in the first one, if you take a look, the denominator will tell you the numbers that you're going to use for your numerator and denominator. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is the numerator count. For example, probably you could try 5 over 5 different times, but when you add it, probably you have a greater fraction, so keep that in mind. For example, here I have 1, 2, 3. So if you add up these 3 5 on top, you already know that you have 15. So that means that you are missing 4 more, and you still need to have the same denominator. On our second step, since we have 5 over 5, that is equal to 1, 5 divided by 5 is 1, 5 divided by 5 is 1, and our fraction is just staying the same. Our last step will be add all the ones together, and then the fractions that were given off. That way, we made it from fraction all the way to mixed number. Right, in today's independent word, you're going to be working, practicing this. First, you have a word problem, basically, where you're going to be answering 4 different questions. Please take a look at this poster right here, because from that information is that you're going to be able to answer the 4 questions. Then on the second part, actually the second page of today's work, then you're going to be converting from mixed number to a fraction, and then all the way around. All right. In this opportunity, you are going to be converting from a fraction to a mixed number. If you need to go back in the video and take a look again at the way I did to actually convert from fraction to mixed number and from mixed number to fraction, go ahead. That will do it for today, guys. I hope that you have enjoyed this lesson. It might be probably challenging, this lesson, but I know that we're growing as a mathematician, all right? So have a great time and see you next time.